The early 2000s were a great era for sci-fi films, packed with newer technology for special effects and some absurd plot lines. Among these films, Jumper was a 2008 film directed by Doug Liman, and it followed a young man who discovers that he can teleport. Soon enough, the movie takes a wild turn as a secret society chases after him, and the movie was quite popular among critics and audiences alike. While it was supposed to have a sequel, there have been no official announcements yet, and today, we will explore the movie and its background in detail. Before we go into our explanation, we have a very small request. If you like our content, please support us by subscribing to our channel. This is a small click for you, but for us, it means a lot. Thank you. Let's begin. Jumper, 2008 movie, explored. Starring Hayden Christensen as the protagonist, David Rice. The movie follows him in his teen years as he has a crush over a classmate, Millie. The movie jumps right into established context as David learns about her dreams to travel the world and comes up with a thoughtful gift for her. While he finds a snow globe of the Eiffel Tower, one of the bullies named Mark gets his hands on the gift and flings it into the icy cold river. However, David is determined to get it back for Millie, and he dips his toes in the river before falling into the ice. He is soon swept away in the river's current, and he realizes that he is going to drown and die if the cold does not get him first. In a surprising turn of events, David somehow finds himself in the library surrounded by bookcases while he gasps out water and comes back to his senses. While he returns home soaking wet, he lands in trouble with his father and evades his anger by vanishing in a swirl of wind. David finds himself at the library once again, and he finally realizes he can teleport. In a matter of seconds, he discovers that his superpower can help him turn his life around and escape his home, especially after his mother abandoned the family when he was a kid. David also has no intention of living with an angry father, and he immediately teleports back to his home to pack a few belongings and some money. He then decides to leave the town, but he makes a pit stop at Millie's house to reassure her that he did not die in the river current. When David reaches her home, he discovers that she has been crying in her mother's arms over his death. He then decides against making his appearance known and leaves the snow globe on her swing set before leaving quietly. In this way, Millie learns that he is alive but has no way of reaching him. The next morning, David makes his way to a nearby city and rents a cheap room before heading to the park to test his power. He then teleports into a bank's vault in the dead of the night to rob the place, but soon realizes that he does not have enough space in his bag to get all the cash. He then teleports to his hotel room to get another bag and bounces back and forth until his entire hotel room overflows with money. As news of the bank robbery spreads like wildfire, Roland from the NSA appears at the scene of the crime and seems relatively unfazed by the entire incident. It appears that he already knew about David's teleportation ability and was part of a bigger group determined to get their hands on him. The movie then jumps into the future, and we learn that David has settled down in a fancy apartment in the city with pictures of his travels across the world. He also has a room dedicated to storing his money. While the pictures tell a story about his adventures, he has gone surfing in Fiji, visited the Sphinx in Egypt, and even flirted with random women at pubs. David seems to have little regard for others, and he continues to teleport from one place to another, while television news in the background covers a terrible flood nearby. However, David's peace does not last forever, and Roland finally finds him and lays out a trap of electrical wires to prevent him from teleporting away. He further identifies David as a jumper and declares that his powers are unnatural and only God should have such power to be everywhere. Roland's group seems dedicated to their cause of destroying jumpers, but David somehow manages to find a way to escape them and teleport back to his childhood bedroom. His father hears a commotion and comes to the bedroom, begging him to stay back, but David teleports away before his father can see him. Now that things have gone a bit awry, David decides that there is no harm in visiting his old love, Millie, and soon locates her working at a bar. His childhood bully, Mark, once again enters the picture, but this time around, David uses his teleportation abilities to trap him in a bank vault. He then works up the courage to walk up to Millie and ask her out on a trip to Rome, and while she is shocked, she accepts his invitation. As they reach their hotel room, Millie senses that David might be keeping things from her, and she asks him not to lie to her. He then promises that he will do no such thing, and they soon end up getting intimate. As they continue their trip, they decide to visit the Colosseum, but their plans are shattered when they realize the place is closed. Refusing to take no for an answer, David sneakily uses his powers to teleport inside and unlock the doors, and their tour goes quite well until they make their way to the stadium's floor. David ends up running into another jumper named Griffin, who warns him that Roland and his paladins are intent on killing them. Just as he warns David, Roland shows up at the scene and Griffin teleports away to evade him, while David decides to follow suit. They end up in Griffin's lair, where Griffin reveals his plans to destroy the Paladins by teleporting them to a shark's tank and dropping them in. He further emphasizes that David should not get involved with Millie, and that jumpers cannot afford to be close to their parents, friends, or girlfriend, as the Paladins might use them to get to him. David hears him out, and then heads out to meet Millie and escape the Coliseum before the officials get to them. However, they get detained, and David decides against teleporting to keep Millie safe. He then asks her to return to the hotel, but she refuses to listen, while David is taken to the police station. They also seize his passport and wait for senior officials to arrive, when a mysterious woman appears out of thin air and urges him to escape. She tells him that he must abandon Millie and that he barely has a few minutes to teleport away before the authorities return. As he takes a second glance at her, David realizes that the woman is none other than his mother, even if she looks a bit different from her old pictures. He then finds Millie and accompanies her to the airport while telling her that he cannot go back with her. Meanwhile, Roland reaches the bank vault where David had trapped Mark and interrogates him. Mark does not seem to know how to explain the entire ordeal, while the officials look at him with disbelief when he describes the teleportation. However, he ends up telling them a bit about David and his family home, and Roland takes this opportunity to visit his dad. While Roland makes his way to David's hometown, David returns to Griffin's lair when he finally realizes that his family and Millie are now caught up. He immediately returns home and finds his father lying on the floor and rushes to teleport him to a hospital. After getting his father some medical attention, David teleports to Mark in jail and realizes that the latter had told Roland everything. He then realizes that Roland will target Millie as soon as her flight lands in the US and even requests Griffin to help him. However, Griffin refuses to cooperate, and David starts following him on his teleporting jumps to convince him. Griffin gives in and tells David all about how the Paladins killed Griffin's parents. He also tells David that they cannot teleport anything and everything, and he knew of another jumper who had died while trying to teleport a building. David soon notices that Griffin has a personal vendetta against Roland, and he uses this information to convince him to help him in some way. At the very least, they teleport to the US and immediately rush to Millie's apartment to save her, but it is already too late, and Roland's team of Paladins corners them as soon as they arrive. In a desperate attempt to save Millie, David teleports her to Griffin's lair, much to the latter's disappointment. Griffin points out that he has now given Roland direct access to their safe space, and he immediately starts evacuating when Roland's forces arrive. As the movie inches closer to its finale, the two opposing forces end up in a terrifying battle, wherein Griffin teleports a bus at Roland to strike him down. However, Roland manages to evade all these attacks, and even traps David with electrical wiring. While he struggles to escape on his own, Millie comes to his rescue. Even if she seems to be a bit terrified of his powers, she orders him to take her home and then leave her alone. But the Paladins ruin their plans and capture her before they can act. Griffin then comes up with a plan to blow up Millie's apartment in the hopes that this would kill Roland, even if it meant that this would kill everyone else at the scene. David immediately puts his foot down as this might threaten Millie's life, and the two of them get into a fight over the bomb. In no time, they start teleporting and chasing each other with the bomb, and it unfortunately ends up detonating in a war zone. Around this time, David finally stops Griffin for good by using the same electric traps that Roland had used to restrict his abilities. David then heads to Millie's home, fully aware that he might be walking into a trap. As soon as he arrives, he is trapped by the electric wires set up by Roland, but he comes up with an escape plan. He asks Millie to come closer to him, and then tries to teleport some parts of the building attached to the electric wire. He hoped this would not have the same consequences as the last time a jumper tried to teleport away with a building, but the structure started collapsing. As soon as he used his powers, the roof fell to the ground, while the building disappeared into thin air. But David was once again a free man. As soon as he escaped, David teleported Roland to a cave and warned him against coming after him again. He even told him to be grateful that he did not feed him to the sharks before leaving while Roland was trapped on a cliffside in the Grand Canyon. The scene soon shifts to a cold winter night as David walks up to his mother's doorstep to finally confront her. She then tells him that she is a paladin and that she has to abandon him because she discovered his teleportation abilities when he was barely 5. Since she could not bring herself to kill him, she made the tough decision of leaving, while David insisted that she should have done more for him. However, he realizes that this is the most he can get from her, and he dejectedly leaves while Millie waits for him outside. She asks him if he is okay, and he brushes it off while she jokes about the weather and suggests going somewhere warm. As the film wraps up, David's face lights up at her suggestion, and she tells him to surprise her just as the screen fades to black and they teleport away. What were the film's key themes, and how did it fare with the audience? The movie is mostly centered around David's choices and is quite a commentary on how he chooses to use his powers in freedom. It serves as a cautionary tale, as David's reckless behavior lands him in a lot of trouble, highlighting how great power often comes with great responsibility. While David stabilizes himself and tries to learn more about his past and his mother, the movie also explores his relationship with his parents as well as Millie. He seems to have his heart in the right place, but this does not stop him from acting irrationally at times and landing his loved ones in trouble. Overall, Jumper was quite a fresh entry in the sci-fi genre and caught the viewer's eye with its eccentric theme and plotline, where David kept jumping from one place to another. While it was not a commercial hit, the movie did garner some fans, but it failed to please critics who gave out negative or mixed reviews. Jumper 2008, the sci-fi hit that never got a sequel. What happened? When Doug Liman stepped up to direct Jumper, he already had plans for a sequel, and many of the events in the film were tailored to set the stage for the sequel's events. Unfortunately, the film did not fare well at the box office, and it also received some mixed, bad reviews from critics. The movie was inspired by Stephen Gould's novel, but it failed to stay true to its original source. Somewhere along the way, the movie's ideas spun out of hand, and Liman then decided to create a trilogy. In this way, the first movie only touched base upon a few elements, and it felt like some key pieces in the puzzle were missing, so there could be room for 2 more movies. Initially, New Regency Productions had also talked about their plans for a sequel, and it was expected that these sequels would be based on Stephen Gould's novel trilogy. After the commercial failure of this film, the studio was not keen on investing in a sequel, and Liman's plans to create an elaborate franchise went to waste. He has often talked about how he believed that he could have done justice to Jumper, and he tried to right his wrong by creating Impulse, a YouTube original that was inspired by Stephen Gould's sequel. While Jumper never got an official sequel, Impulse is the closest thing to a recreation of the original film, and we can certainly give up hope for a sequel at this point. Marvelous verdict, and with that, we jump to the end of this video that explores a truly fascinating twist to a traditional sci-fi movie. Jumpers was a fun addition to the genre, and it depicts the teleportation angle in a fun, refreshing way, as David seemingly hops away from all his problems until he eventually has to face them head on. It is quite a shame that the sequel never manifested, but we can always hope for some kind of a spin-off or a reboot in the future. We hope you enjoyed exploring this film with us, and we would love to hear your views in the comments below. And if you liked our content, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to us if you haven't already. Have a good one and be safe. Thanks, everyone.